Hello, and welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Network podcast, where everyone belongs, especially if you think you don't. Welcome, imposters. My name is Chris Grundeman, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostess, Zoe Rose.
Hey.
This is the Dominik Pickhardt episode, and it's going to be a great one. Dominik is an InfoSec architect and a recovering network engineer with years of experience across many industries, and he's joining us today from his home in Berlin. Hey, Dominik, would you mind introducing yourself a bit further to the Imposter Syndrome Network?
Hey, my name is Dominik. I'm here from Berlin at Network Autobahn on the Twitter. So I had the joy to meet Zoe and Chris multiple times on Tech Field Day events. Recently, I met Zoe in Amsterdam in her hometown, which is pretty nice. And the first time I actually listened to your Imposter Syndrome Network, that's actually a very good one. And I need to join that club. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. That's good to hear. And yeah, that's actually where I wanted to start today with the thing we have in common, which is Tech Field Day. We've all been delegates, as you mentioned, and we've also, I think all of us appeared on Gestalt IT webinars and podcasts and things like that. And actually, Dominik, I think you were there at the Security Field Day where Zoe and I decided to start this podcast. So you've kind of been involved from the beginning, whether you knew it or not. And that's where I'd like to kick things off, is kind of with your TFD story, call it. How did you get involved with Tech Field Day, and what have you gotten out of it so far?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy if you are, let's say, foreign, not in the US. So the first things, I watched the first things and never had an idea that I could join the Tech Field Day. It was always kind of a US thing and very far away and so on. I was working at this time for the German government, started just my blog, and even social media, I was kind of, for me, not a big presence and so on. And I just texted the Gestalt IT mailer and said, awesome event, I really like it and so on. And then Steven reached out to me and said, yeah, we will fly you in. Let's come on. Let's come to the next event that we do. And yeah, that was kind of the start of the story. I think it's all about building communities. It's one thing with the vendor presentation and the tech, and the other thing, like we together to build communities, to meet people. It helps really if you talk to other people, smart people that are having experience in other directions or just seeing stuff from other perspectives. So this is, I think, the real magic about this Tech Field Day event. It brings together people and exchanges ideas, and that's really, really a good event. Yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, when I met you, I don't remember the first time I met you, but I remember seeing you and then sitting down with the presentation, and you always had such brilliant questions. And I always felt like quite shocked, because I feel like a lot of times when I'm sat there listening to presentations, I've got to take a minute to put myself into context of what are they talking about? And I always feel like you seem to have a really good presence and a really good ability to quickly pick up what they're talking about in the context and ask really beneficial questions. So I suppose my question to you is, do you ever struggle with knowing how to present yourself, and like, how can you sit there in front of a camera with X amount of people watching on the stream and admit, okay, I need to ask a question, but how do I ask a question with not feeling like you're being silly in your question asking?
Yeah, totally. I think it's all about a lot of the topics you don't know in detail. You are not a super expert, but it's also to have at least understanding what this is about, and then dig into things that are interesting and have a general understanding. In my, let's say, I'm now a couple of times, so I'm already one of the long-time Gestalt IT guys, but it's all the same, If you see the technology, it always comes in waves. We have kind of the same ideas coming over and over again. And often, if you understand the fundamentals, how things are going together, it helps you, like an old idea is brought up again and discussed again. And I think I always try also to have a fresh view on things, So often when people presenting something where they think, oh, that's the brilliant idea. So in my head, I try to compare this to the fundamental. Where is this coming from? What it is all about? Then translate this to what is the new aspect that they are bringing with this new technology. That's kind of my approach.
No, that's a really good point. I find it funny sometimes where we're sat down and we're like, I could see the other people chatting in the chat being like, what use case are they actually bringing here? And then we figure it out. And then we're like, oh, okay. And then everybody's like, oh, I've seen this before and that before and that. And so it's really cool seeing the different almost generations of techs. Because I put myself more on the junior side in our grand scheme of things, because I only have just over 10 years? And you guys have an exceptionally longer time than I do. So it is really, really interesting. That kind of brings me to a question about career and your kind of journey. Why did you get into tech? Was it something you always wanted to do?
So I think it was a bit of all call accidentally. So I was like many people starting after work in Germany. You have to go to the army, or you had to go. They don't do it mandatory for 1 year, or you could go 14 months in a social environment. So I was in a hospital, a big one here in Berlin. It was doing IT staff support. Yeah, it was my first thing. And then later I was at the university. In the university, computer science is very mathematical. Then I was getting an opportunity to join a company. What they have here in Germany is kind of, you start your work and you do a 2-year, let's say, on-the-job training. And after that, you get a state-sponsored certificate that you are allowed to do a certain job. And in this job, first I was thrown in coming from university where you just have theory. And in this job, they said, okay, the first 6 months it was a consulting company, which was also doing all sorts of cabling jobs and so on. So the first 6 months, I was just doing cabling. Yeah. And I said, oh, crazy. And fibers, splicing and so on. And at the first spot of it, I kind of didn't like it. But afterwards, I have to say, it's really good to understand the basic, how the structured cabling is going. So later in my career, it really helped me a lot to understand how, networks are built and how this all got together. Yeah. Like many people, I was in a consulting shop, firefighting. Yeah. Most of the time you were dragged in. Don't tell them that you just work for us for 1 year. You are senior expert and you have to move around and just help wherever you can and make things work. But it's intense, but you also learn very quick a lot. Yeah. So I was doing security, networking stuff. And like many people, I had kids and searched for something more, let's say, where I can rely on work hours and more family friendly. So then I worked for a long period of time for the German government, which was also kind of interesting because in this, you have a very big network, bigger than most enterprise networks. And you could also learn a lot from the size of it. And it was kind of a good time. I learned a lot in this. And also this was the time I had the time to do some social, let's say, stuff like adding an account, starting a blog, going to Tech Field Day and so on. So from that time, and then from the government work, I returned to the business side of things, working now for an international law firm. Of course, it is more 24/7. It is more demanding and kind of more of that side of things. But on the other hand, you also learn in an international company a lot of new social skills. Yeah, you have to deal with people from a lot of different corners of the world, and that is also kind of exciting. Besides of the tech, it's a lot has to do now. Social engineering is always a bit negative, but I would say social skills, with people to understand how things working, how things are getting together. The world is built on trust, how to convince people. In cybersecurity, I would say it's just half the way if you sort out the tech. The other half of the way to make it something secure is to sort out the social relationships and trust inside the corporation or organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And we've talked about that quite a bit, I think Zoe and I both on the podcast over the last few weeks and months, which is that, a lot of us kind of came to tech maybe to hide away from people, at least initially, and then learned that, real success actually came from figuring out how to deal with people.
Literally my journey.
Yeah, right. But I'm interested, right? I mean, so you started on that IT help desk and kind of got into structured cabling and really was like a network engineer at first. I mean, I know you wore a lot of hats and I want to talk more about that here in a minute, but kind of started on the networking path and now you're more kind of full-fledged security. And I wonder, if you could talk to us a little bit about that transition of how you kind of went from networking to security, why that happened. Was that kind of another accident or something you really intentionally pursued, or what interested you about security to bring you over to that side, or, just anything about that transition?
Now, so like for many people, it started with network security. So first building a lot of data center, then of course there's always the portion of firewalls that you came from, and that was driving me a bit into the security world. So you start with this background of network security, and then when you start working more on security focused stuff, you see there's the whole world. It's a very broad world in security. You have to wear so many hats. Yeah? So I'm talking about when it comes to technology, endpoint security, logging technology, VMs, all that stuff. Yeah. So it's very broad. Then you have this whole compliance world. Then you have a lot of the auditing world, and it's all in parallel. I think in security, what I like about this is kind of you're doing a bit of everything. So if you are, let's say, a storage specialist, in most cases, you just do this one thing and you do it very good. In security, you have to work with all the teams. It's a interdiscipline topic. Yeah. So you have to, let's say, at least be a bit informed of, if you talk to a developer, what are their terminologies, what do they care about, and so on. And maybe on 5 minutes later, you have a discussion with the storage people, and they have very different things that they care about, and so on. So it's kind of also changing your perspective very often, wearing many hats. And let's say you sort out all the technology to make something secure, then you have also to have the organization, the processes, all that sorted out. So I think to understand how all these pieces come together and how you build one layer over the other, this is kind of interesting for me. Yeah. So this whole concept, and yeah, my background is networking, and I think this is a very good fundamental knowledge that most security people should have, yeah, to understand how it's all going. But of course, also we have so much, when I look at all the hacking scene and how exploitation is working and so on. By no matter I'm an expert in that field, but I can at least understand on how it's work, how the methodology is, how these people think, how they do something. I can do, yeah. Even I give you a basic example: pen testing. Yeah, some people doing this for living 24/7. I'm not. Yeah, but I can at least understand what is their methodology, how do they interact with something, and so on. And as a security person, this is also what I like: is you can choose kind of the areas in that you focus, and you can also kind of put your career in a specific corner. Yeah. So there are so many opportunities. If you like, I don't know, to do application security more, you can go in that direction, or you do more compliance, whatever it's your need. So this is kind of for everybody who's starting new in cybersecurity business. It's so broad and you have to know so much stuff. And sometimes it's a convincing conversation with the CISO to get the funding and the money to buy something that you really need to make things better or more secure. Yeah. So it's challenging with all that stuff. Yeah.
I would agree with that statement, that final statement. I feel like out of all the years that I've worked in technology, working in security, I have made the most PowerPoints. So actually, that's a huge part of security. But I do agree with that point also about choosing the area you want to work in. I think sometimes people get intimidated because security is so vast and there's literally no way you can know everything, but you can know specifics about, like, it's almost like you have that broad understanding. You don't have the depth in all of the areas, but you have it in certain areas that you're good at. And that's what I've taken away from kind of figuring out my place in my career, is recognizing where my limitations are, but also recognizing that even though it's not considered the sexy side of security, I like it. So it is to me. I like documentation. I know I'm a weirdo. I like networking. I like collaboration. And so figuring out how I can work together in an organization in a secure way is really interesting to me. So doing that threat modeling, figuring out what works for that situation. Some people find that really boring. And I think sometimes in our career, or sometimes in this career, we've kind of almost put a limitation by saying, oh, it's red teaming or blue teaming. You're offensive or defensive. And that's putting everybody in a little box and not allowing them to realize that maybe they like pen testing and they like building a network. Maybe they like this and they like that. It doesn't have to fit within one little category.
What me helped a lot is putting myself in the shoes from somebody else, changing the perspective, yeah? Not to always think from, compliance or whatever. Sometimes to have the view from, the normal secretary in the office or so, yeah? Going down these steps, yeah? Another thing also, you need a driver that is pushing you forward in all these discussions, yeah? For me, it's kind of, I like to achieve little things. So when I go at home, where I take joy in my work, if I say, okay, I've changed here something, I made it different. This is a little step to make something more secure. Some people have other stuff that are motivating them for their work, but I really like to achieve something, to have the feeling, okay, this is tweaked to the next level. And sometimes this tweaking can even be that you teach somebody cybersecurity awareness. Yeah. You haven't changed anything, but you had a good conversation with a classroom of people, transferred some knowledge, and they are going out and maybe having something learned from you. Yeah. So that's also great joy, I think.
Yeah, in my career, that's also one of the things that I've taken away as being the most impactful, was when I did awareness training that was like teaching people how to hack, not to make a little hacker army, but to get them excited about a topic that formerly they really didn't like. And it wasn't really difficult either. It was building a little tiny lab, doing very simple things, and it was so rewarding. So I think it's also kind of putting in perspective as to what actually brings you joy.
Yeah, I think about hacking because you brought it up. Hacking is for me a mindset. It's not a specific skill, it's a mindset. Not use things in a way how they are supposed to be used, to tear them apart into little pieces, check out what loopholes you can find and so on. This kind of mindset, yeah. And it's hard to transfer this to people, but if they understand that this is a methodology, I think everybody can learn hacking skills, yeah, at the end of the day.
100%.
Absolutely. I think so, for sure. And I really like that. I've never heard anybody say it that way, that it's a mindset, but that's definitely how I understand it, right? Is it really, hacking is all about repurposing things for things they weren't intended to be used for, in all kinds of ways, right? Whether it's physical or virtual or software or hardware or whatever. Talking through this, Dominik, I mean, obviously, I think you have a lot of confidence in your abilities, and you've been able to kind of work across a lot of different areas of technology. And so you picked up a lot of skills. And as Zoe pointed out, right, you're one of the most confident speakers we've seen as kind of a delegate in some of these events, and being able to ask questions and kind of put yourself out there, seeing things through other people's eyes. And I wonder, kind of with all of that as the backdrop and all your years of experience, do you ever feel like you're not smart enough, or feel like you're out of place, or feel like an imposter?
Yeah, I think every day, every day. So I would say there is so much to learn, yeah, and you always stumble about new stuff, and we grow with that, yeah. So don't take it as a negative, take it always as a positive. So I still can remember my first tech field day where we had all the big guys in the rooms, and like Zoe was saying, yeah, when they have a deep dive discussion on routing protocols, and you think, your routing protocol knowledge is just, let's say, rudimentary. It's kind of, hard to follow up. But at the end of the day, with all these smart people and so on, they have also fields where they don't have this expertise. And what I really like, if you go to people and say to them, okay, I'm not the expert here. Can you maybe help me with that? A lot of the times on conference and so on, the people are helpful. Yeah. You met somebody, he has a big name. He is maybe the inventor or has written the RFP for a certain technology. But most of the people, if you reach out to them, have a technical discussion, most of them are super positive, helpful. And of course, you cannot come with first level questions to somebody who is already at the high level. Yeah, you have to adopt a bit who you are in your journey. So in mentorship, of course, it will change. You start with people that bringing you the first steps on a way. And then, of course, you're getting more expertise and it's rising higher to whom you reach out and so on. It's a journey.
Yeah, definitely a journey. I had a kind of a linked question. Is it regarding, I mean, from an external point of view, you're very impressive. And it's really cool sitting with you in these Tech Field Day events and hearing your perspective and hearing your questions. But is there ever a time that maybe you weren't as confident and maybe you actually made a massive mistake or maybe you screwed up quite drastically? And how did you recover from that? And maybe how did that affect you?
Yeah, so giving you an example, I was working for a consultant for an unnamed big hospital here in Germany. And they wanted to send out a little message that the PCs go all on sleep before the maintenance thing. So yeah, we programmed a little message, this wake on LAN packet. Okay, checked out, looks easy. Let's send it out to everything. But in the moment we sent it out, there was a massive electricity peak. And then the breaker comes in and the whole hospital was going for a moment down and had no power until the massive UPS and the diesel engine kicked in. And when a diesel kicks in and you're in this data center, it's super loud. So yeah, we felt very sorry about this and had to explain. But
wait, did the message cause the power to go out?
Yeah, because too many PCs were shut down at the same thing at the same moment, and then there was a peak.
Caused like a spike back.
Yes.
Oh man, that's a wild one.
That's brilliant.
Oh man. Because that's one of those things like, usually when an outage happens, I mean, it sucks, but it's contained to the virtual world. And this is an outage that spilled over into the physical world. Yeah, that's why, especially at a hospital where I'm sure there's machines that are plugged in. And oh man, I can't imagine.
I was super junior admin, so actually one of my colleagues did the script. But yeah, we are one team. We come together. We was at the end working out and not, but yeah, things like that happen. And yeah, I think I learn much more from my failures than from my successes. Yeah. So you have sometimes to break something to learn from it that you will not do that again. Yeah. So learn the lesson, test your scripts, be mindful of how powerful something can be. Yeah. And I think I like to talk about war stories with people because I've not met a single person that didn't have fucked up at one time in his career something. Yeah. It's kind of something we all need to do. And yeah, if you don't fall down, you don't learn how to run. Yeah.
It's an achievement.
It's like a badge of honor, right? It's like a rite of passage.
It is a badge of honor. I mean, yeah. And especially if you work in like networking, for example, like you take down the network at least once. You have to. That's just a part of being a network person. And then the security, I don't know, maybe I have to cause a breach.
To be clear, we're not recommending that, but we're saying it's inevitable.
It will happen. On the flip side of that, what's your greatest achievement in your career? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Just what's the thing you're most proud of?
I think to be connected in an international community, to have context. I really like that this is these days possible. Back in the days, people had only known people in their area and so on. And now this little security networking community. It's international. It's very nice, very lot of helpful people, and I'm humbled to be part of it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is about all the time we have today. So we'll basically leave it there. Dominik, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story with the Imposter Syndrome Network. And thank you to all the imposters out there listening to us. We know that your time and your attention are the most valuable assets you have, and we really appreciate you spending them with us. Please do consider joining the LinkedIn group to give or get career advice. And definitely be sure to share this episode with a friend, a family member, a colleague, maybe a student you're aware of who might find it interesting or informative. I do have one more question for you, Dominik, before we shut down completely, kind of related to what you talked about just a few minutes ago about learning from failures over successes more, but maybe not. What I want to know is, what would you change about your career so far, if you could, and why?
I wouldn't change anything. I'm happy with every moment. So yeah, it's always a journey and a path. And yeah, I'm totally, let's say, in sync with myself and where I landed. So it's good. Maybe I have some spots that I will check out on my career path, but so far I'm happy with everything. Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Are there any projects that you have going on right now that you'd like us to know about, or one to highlight for the Imposter Network?
Yeah, you can check out my blog at Network Autobahn, but I would like to share one thing that really helped me a lot in my thing. It sounds crazy, but I'm doing RPGs, so pen and paper RPGs for a long time. Since I have a group of people, I'm doing this since the late 90s, same group of people. And it really helped me a lot in the job to have this role-playing aspect, to put your mindset in somebody else, So sometimes it looks a bit nerdy, very famous Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. But I think for keeping your mind fresh, to put yourself in other perspectives, some of this really can help you to always be fresh, to have this ability to think a bit like a child, to be more curious about things.
I love that. That's great advice. I also am a big role player, both tabletop, kind of pen and pencil. Although most of that's moved to like Zoom and things now. We use some online tools and things, but kind of try to keep it the same. But also some of the games and things online. The in-person stuff though is definitely where you really get, at least for me, where you really get to put yourself in. If you're doing it right anyway, I think put yourself in your character's shoes and make decisions that you wouldn't make, but that character would. That's awesome. I like that advice a lot.
Yeah, it keeps us a bit away from this pure adult thinking and giving us back a bit of the childhood thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So I assume folks can find you on LinkedIn and Twitter. Also your blog, Network Autobahn. We'll have all those links in the show notes. That's all brilliant. This has been fantastic. And we'll be back next week. Also, no one's a rubbish person, Zoe, by the way.
I mean,
you said you were trying to stop being a rubbish person. I don't like it.
Little rubbish.
Except for did you guys watch Fraggle Rock? In Fraggle Rock, there was a garbage person. There was actually a pile of garbage that was an animate.
The living garbage hole. Living garbage hole. Yeah.
It was a living garbage pile. It was actually a really nice guy.
Maybe I'm actually a rubbish pile in a jumper.